In studio right now is Marques Phillips, a very good friend of ours, and we received very sad news over the weekend that Marcus's dad and longtime Utica Common Council member Bill Phillips has passed away at the very early age of 62. Marques, good morning, and your choice to come in here this morning is because you really want to just let people know things that you know about your dad.
Yeah, everybody, there was a lot that goes into coming here this morning. The first one is that I've done this. I was reminded you had Gina Pierce on your show recently, and I went and covered when her sister was killed, and she came on and talked to us, and I asked her to, and I think when I was a reporter, I've done a lot of trying to talk into people while they were grieving. And I felt like it would be hypocritical if I didn't come in and sort
It's hard to do. It's hard to do, but I also think that it can be therapy, because it has to make you feel good when you see people who really, sometimes people you didn't even know, who really loved your dad or appreciated what your dad had done. It does make you feel good.
Yeah, that's the second part, right? Like, it's just like gratitude. As much as we've been through this last 6 months. There's so many people.
Yeah.
There's so many people that were there at the worst times.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you. I want to let people know that he knew. I mean, he was conscious until he died. He knew what was going on, and he knew what they were doing for him, and I knew, and we were humbled and we appreciated it. And I just, I've been private. When your father, we talked about this some on the phone, when your father's public and you're a person that gets seen around a lot in the public, it's flattering, but it's hard to get out of Price Chopper sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when he passes, we all kind of just took a step back and sit home. I didn't have people come over my house with cold cut trays and sit around, and so I wanted to come on here because you're a friend. And I wanted to tell people that, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
We've been kind of to ourselves for the past day or so.
I had blood work done, and I saw your dad. This was when I first had learned whatever I was going through at the time. Right. And I wanted to get in there. I went over into the corner. The place is packed. You're getting blood work done, and your dad was there, I'm assuming, with your sister. And I didn't say anything to him. I think he saw me. I saw him. Neither of us really had the energy to get up and walk over to and to be honest with you, I don't think either one of us wanted to. You want to be in. You want to be private. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's probably how you feel right now about sometimes you just have to be alone a little bit with family and the people you're closest with.
Yeah, we talked a little bit, and I hope you forgive me for disclosing, but you and I talked a little bit just about like when a lot of times when you're dealing with the public a lot and a lot of people love you, they mean well, but your family, sometimes they're the unintended sort of victims of it.
Yeah.
So you're with your kid, you're in the hospital getting blood work, and they have to stop and talk every time you have to stop and talk. And that's part of the reason you said you didn't speak much about your sickness.
Yeah.
It's because you didn't need all the attention, and probably Allison didn't need all the attention, and you guys just kind of wanted to go through it. And then you come out on the other side and come on your radio show, and this is a way of saying, hey, this is what I've been through. I love you guys.
Yeah. I do think that there's something to be said for you can be yourself around your family.
Right.
And when people who you don't necessarily know, you have to step up and be that person you're not. And you want to relieve yourself of having to do that. And that's all it is. It isn't personal. It's just you get to sit home and your family, and you don't have to act anything different. You can be yourself. And you can grieve.
And it's hard when you're the child of somebody that's sort of a public person. And for me, I'm not as well known as my father. And so when we go to like the benefit, he's not supposed to be coming into contact with people he can get germs. I said, Dad, you're going to come in here for 20 minutes. You're going to say your thing. He stood up for 2.5 hours.
I know.
He's shaking everybody's hands. He's all good job, and I'm trying to pull him, and he get off of me. You know, I know what I'm doing. And in the hospital, people come to visit him all day long, like from morning till night. And there are people that love him.
Yep.
You know, I don't want to imply that they're strangers. I mean, these people love my father. And he doesn't want the morphine drip. He wants to sit up and talk to every person and do his best, even in the end when he can kind of like grunt. He's not talking as well. He you know, I'm like, all right, Dad, I'm going to restrict your, you know, he's not going to let me restrict his visitors. So I think it's hard for you to learn, and I think probably your kids had to learn, like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do. That's who he is. That's what makes him happy. So even if it's making his battle with cancer more difficult, you have to give him that space to be himself.
Yeah, I think, and that's hard for us as kids to do when dealing with our parents.
Right.
Is you want to make the right decision for them, but ultimately you have to allow them to make that decision. Let's talk about what you want people to remember about your. This is somebody that, and we're in a time where all of a sudden being a public servant, people criticize it. Which there's not much you can criticize being a Utica Common Council person because the benefits of that are so minimal.
Right.
It's pure public service.
And the issues aren't partisan. You know, like you know, some of it is like right now we all feel like we got to be on teams, right?
Yeah.
But one of the people he served on the Common Council with, and I'll mention her name, is Teresa Wonis, who sat with him in the hospital like every morning because I was at work and somebody has to talk to the doctors, and then she's calling me. They want to give him this shot. Is that okay? Yes, Teresa, it's fine. And then, you know, she was there every day, man, and she's a Republican because, like, they agreed on whether the arterial should be redone.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. It's not like you know, they were up there discussing the complexities of abortion or whether we should invade Iraq. I mean, the issues are local, and he had so many friends across the spectrum, and like you said, it's become, I don't know, man, like public service has gotten knocked. But here's somebody, my father made less money in his retirement serving at City Hall than he would have if he just collected his pension straight up, because you got to pay the taxes and you can't get the whole pension while you're making the council salary. Like, he thought he was doing good. Whether other people thought it or not, and he just believed it. Like, he answered his phone every single time. You know, like, we'd be on fishing trips. He's talking about, like, potholes, you know, with constituents. I'm like, Dad, you know, we're supposed to be spending this time on the lake. I don't get any reception out here. Move the boat closer to the... That's just who he is, you know? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know how I want to remember, how I want people to remember him, because... that's a loaded question, because there's, you know, I remember so many things, and there's so many things he was proud of. But for me, it's like I come from an interracial family. My mom is white. I have an older sister from a previous relationship of his that's like kind of full black, and like what stood out to me is like the array of people all the time. We would sit and have coffee at the breakfast table. And different people would come throughout the day just to talk or have coffee with us. And there was white people and black people and disabled people and heavy people and skinny people and congressmen and plumbers. And, like, it always, the diversity of my father's group, he taught me, like, no matter who somebody is or where they come from, like, you don't look down on anybody. Yeah. My father didn't look down on drug addicts. He didn't look down on anybody. And that's hard for me to do because I look down, you know, I judge people quick. But I try to learn that lesson, and I think that's what he means to me. Yeah. I don't know what he means to everybody else.
Have you thought about, I mean, your father, such a young age, 62 years old, and if you're just joining in, Bill Phillips was a longtime Utica councilman, has passed away from over the weekend. And, you know, when you go back and you think about how you have grown up and how your dad grew up, and it was a different time. He grew up through some pretty huge moments for the black community, and where things weren't so easy. And look what he was able to accomplish through all of it. Have you thought about that? And then to be able to bring someone up like yourself and what you've been able to accomplish and your siblings as well.
Yeah, we talked about it. It's funny, when your father gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, you spend a lot of time in the hospital. You got a lot of time to go over a lot of stuff. So we talked about his upbringing versus my upbringing, and like the thing is, my father grew up in Washington Courts. It was the projects by the Odd. My grandparents were sharecroppers. They came up here on the bean trucks. That's how they met. The bean trucks, they would bring trucks up here for migrant workers, and they were migrant bean pickers, and they fell in love and stayed here and raised a family of 7 in the projects. And like, one of the things he was telling me, first of all, he always wanted me to wear a suit, and I never wear suits. I never dress up, right? And
you're wearing one today.
I'm wearing one today for those who aren't watching.
Yeah,
and because like, he was limited sort of by his opportunities. He tried his best, but he wasn't like as polished maybe with the language as I am, or as well written, or as good with technology, because like, there's kind of a ceiling. You grow up in Washington Courts, you go to Potter School, maybe some kids have excellent achievements, but there's kind of a ceiling there. And he talked to me about like working his whole life and meeting my mother and trying to make sure that I didn't have the same ceiling that he had. And so to him, watching me do good, seeing me in a suit, seeing people offer me jobs, he took it as such a compliment, man, because he felt like he gave me a higher ceiling than he had. And the funny thing about it is, I never felt like half of him.
Yeah.
He always thought I had so much more potential than him. He would tell me, if I had your skills, I'd be president of the United States. And you're sitting here on Lexington Ave with a coffee watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never felt like half of him. But he always felt like I could be so much more than him because of the work he put in to me and my sisters. And he was proud of that, man. He told me in the hospital every day he saw me when he was in there, he just looked at me like, son, I'm proud of you. Like, don't worry, I'm proud of you. Because he knew I had, like, hesitance. Because with him, with my father going, like, I'm 36 years old. I don't think people understand how close we were. I live upstairs from him. Like, I don't know how to make adult decisions. I sat down there and drank coffee, and, Dad, should I do this? What do you think about that? I'm not completely sure I can do that.
Yeah.
I've never had to.
Without being able to call your dad and ask.
And sit down. And a lot of times I disagreed with him, but we would hash it out, especially with my daughter. Like, Dad, what do I do? She didn't come home at night. Like, how did you handle this with me? In that case, he would say, it's karma,
What do you think he was most, beyond family, as a councilman? What do you think he was most proud of, and on the other side, most hopeful for as we go forward?
Okay. So my father, he represented Cornhill, which when he came in, there was a few things. There was the Hope 6 housing project, which is like $100 million project to revitalize the housing stock, put homes, single-family homes that people can own, as well as multiple dwelling rentals. He thought that was so important for the neighborhood to switch up its housing stock, to try to get some people that own their homes into the neighborhood. And that was a huge project that Cornhill doesn't look the same. He was into, Johnson Park Centers, where he had me work there. Homeless people, drug addicts, a youth center. They do so much, and they've changed the look of that neighborhood, and they got solar panels. That was important. And he was a councilman when Officer Lindsay got shot. And I remember he called me, and he wanted me to help him, write a guest column for Officer Lindsay, because he knew, like, as a councilman, he felt like he put the police in that neighborhood because he approved the budget and the plan, and he felt like an obligation to get this right, and he wanted to do more community policing, get cops out of the car to make them safer so they connect with the neighborhood. And so those are some of the things he was proud of as a councilman. I think going forward, I think anybody would agree. It's just that some people would be bad because I'm trying to do this non-controversially. That there is a massive transformation on the brink of our city.
Yeah.
When you look at the downtown hospital, when you look at a possible Nexus Center, when you look at a $60 million road paving plan, I mean, the structure of our city is changing.
Yep.
And that was important to my father because he felt like he had been waiting, his whole time to get an opportunity to just make the city better, in his opinion. And right now, how we spend this money and what we do in these projects going to go a long way to determine what kind of city we're going to be 15 years from now.
Mm-hmm. It is an opportunity, and it says a lot for the work that he's put in over these years to lead up to this point. It had to be something that he was really proud of going forward, that we have an opportunity for a huge transformation, a big change.
The thing that I was proud of my father, and people that knew him, it's hard to believe about a politician, but anybody that knew him know I'm telling the truth. It's like every single vote my father ever took, he was accountable for it, and he never lied to people or BS people about how he felt or what he voted. He wanted to get elected based on what he thought was right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we talked about it. There were some controversial votes, term limits. My father, in local elections, my father don't believe in term limits because he felt like people are close enough to their politicians that they can look at them and judge them.
Right.
So he voted to extend the term limits on the Common Council, and it was a controversial vote. And there were some people that, I don't know if they're still friends of this show, but have been friends of this show, were really were opposed to. And so there was a loud meeting and people were yelling. And I think my father was one of the only people that supported it, that showed up to that meeting because they knew what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And he was the only one that came on this show.
Yeah.
When
we'll
we
talk
asked
about that. I want to.
Yeah. And he stood there and he said, "This is what I believe."
Yeah.
And if you're going to get me based on, he used to always tell me, man, if you're doing what you believe in, you can live with whatever the consequences are.
Yeah.
If somebody punches you in the face, or you punch me for being Marques. But don't get punched for being somebody else.
Right.
Don't get punched holding somebody else's water. And so I think, like, as a councilman, that's what I respected about my father. There's times, people come to you with issues like that you can't do anything about, right? My neighbors, I don't like the way they're hanging clothes off their porch or whatever. My father would just look at him and say, "Well, I can't do anything about that. I can't." But that's powerful because most people would say, "Oh, I'm gonna call.
Let me look into this.
I'll get the codes officer over here."
Yeah.
He would look at people. He'd be like, "I can't do anything about that."
You're gonna have to
I'm
live
your
with
dad.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yes, like I'm a legislator, man. I can't tell him where to hang his clothes.
He came in. He came in here. He was one of the only ones. He might have been the only one on the issue of as council members who voted for the term limit extension. And he looked at me, and because I clearly was against that, I felt that it should be the people and what have you. However, I'm with him on term limits. I truly believe that term limits are elections.
Right.
I'm not a term limits person. However, your father completely took any of the air out of the room that was ready to oppose him when he simply said, just as you said, I number one, I think the guy's doing a good job. Number two, I don't believe in term limits. I did what I felt in my heart was right. How do you argue with that?
Right.
You can't argue with that.
Listen, I disagreed with him. But first of all, it was a thing like some people use this as a way to insult him. But my father and the mayor, my family and the mayor go back so far that it's a guy that if he believed in what he was doing, and he voted against the mayor on the road paving plan and stuff. So he voted against the mayor on key important votes. But he was happy to support him when he thought he was right.
Yeah.
Because of everything the mayor meant to our family growing up. And while he was on the council, I mean, the mayor is like a member of our family.
Right.
And so, I was proud of him, man. And I disagreed with him.
You couldn't disagree, though, because just as you said, he voted with his heart. And if someone's honest with you like that, it's hard to go to them and say, well, what do you do? It just takes the air out of the argument.
Right.
And that's what he did.
And when people say, like, if you knew, like, I think if average people were around the councilman a lot of times, they would know. And look, you run for the office. There's a prestige that comes with it. I understand. But, like, there's people that think he's getting rich off of the decisions he's making,
None
or
of that.
there's some kind of corruption.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it is more of a pain in the rear
Yeah.
for your family and for the people around you than I could ever imagine dealing with. It's one of the reasons, why, as he got sick, there's people that asked me to sit in his seat or to do that. Like, I don't have the stomach.
I've got 15 seconds. Quickly, calling hours, funeral, has that been set yet?
Yeah, so Thursday he wanted to do one in Cornhill, and it's a smaller funeral parlor, but it's T. Revel Gibson, and that's from 5 to 8. That's calling hours. And then we're going to go to Greater Grace Church, which is on Nay Ave in West Utica, and we'll be there Friday at 1 for a viewing, and then at 2 for the service.
Marques, thank you, and we're so sorry for your loss.
Thank you, guys.
He's a good man.
I love a few people in this room. Okay.
You're a good man. And we'll break.